In this video, we are going to learn the absolute basics of roots. In my previous video, Intro to Exponents, we learned that 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, is equal to 9. Now, if we want to know what the square root of 9 is, we have to ask ourselves which number multiplied by itself is 9. This number is 3, because 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. But often, unless otherwise stated, the square root of a number refers only to the principal square root. The principal square root of 9 is the positive square root, which is just 3 in our example and not negative 3. If you want negative 3 to be your solution, you would have to add a minus in front of the square root. But be careful. If, for example, x squared is equal to 9, then the equation is true for x equals 3 and x equals negative 3. Because 3 squared is 9 and negative 3 squared is also 9. In other words, most of the time when you have a square root without a minus in front, the solution is positive. Let's move on with our examples. What is 5 squared? Let's see. 5 times 5 is 25. Now, what is the square root of 25? Again, we'll find the solution by asking ourselves what number multiplied by itself is 25. The solution to this problem is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. What about this example? What is 2 squared? 2 squared is 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. Now, what is the square root of 4? Again, ask yourself which number multiplied by itself is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. What is the square root of 16? Again, ask yourself which number multiplied by itself is 16. The solution is 4, because 4 squared is 16. What is the square root of 36? The square root of 36 is 6, because 6 squared is 36. What is the square root of 81? The square root of 81 is 9, because 9 squared is 81. What is the square root of 64? And what is the square root of 49? Feel free to pause the video and try these two examples by yourself. The square root of 64 is 8, because 8 squared is 64. And the square root of 49 is 7, because 7 squared is 49. I highly recommend memorizing the first 20 perfect squares, which are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on up to 400. because these are to know when it comes to square roots. We see in this table that roots and exponents are the opposites of each other. 3 squared equals 9. And the square root of 9 brings us back to our number 3. 4 squared equals 16. And the square root of 16 brings us back to our number 4. 5 squared equals 25. And the square root of 25 brings us back to our number 5. And so on. By the way, it's not necessary to write the 2 in the upper left corner of the square root symbol. When there is no number in the top left corner of the root symbol, then it's always the square root. But in all other roots, such as the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and so on, which I will show you now, you have to write the number in the top left corner of your root symbol. Up until now, we looked at square roots. To find the square root of a number, we asked ourselves which number we have to multiply with each other 2 times. There are also roots which ask for a number that we have to multiply 3, 4 or more times, which looks then like the 3rd root of 27. In this case, we have to ask ourselves what number we have to multiply 3 times by itself, instead of twice by itself, like in our previous examples, to get the 3rd root, which means to get 27 in our example. The 3rd root is also called cube root. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So the 3rd cube of 27 is 3. What is the cube root of 8? In other words, what number can we multiply 3 times by itself to get 8? Feel free to pause the video and try that by yourself. The solution is 2, because 2 cubed, which is 2 times 2 times 2, is 8. Do you see the pattern? What about the 4th root of 16? In other words, what number multiplied 4 times by itself is 16? The solution is 2, because 2 to the 4th power, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, is 16. Let's do one more example. What is the 117th root of 1? Feel free to pause the video and try that by yourself. This looks difficult, but remember, ask yourself the question, what number do you have to multiply 117 times by itself to get 1? That's very simple. It's 1. Multiplying 117 times by itself is 1. What I want to add is that up until now we looked at roots which gave us whole numbers as a solution. But there are also roots which do not have whole numbers as their solution. I will look closer on that in another video. This video here is only about the basics of roots. Until then, feel free to use your calculator for those kind of problems. For the sake of completeness, I want to add 2 more things at the end. First, for example, when we look at the 4th root of 16, we call the root symbol also the radical symbol or radical. The number under that symbol is called the radicand. The 4 is called the root index, or index. And the 2 is called the solution or root. Second, I want to write the law of fractional exponents down because it kind of connects the exponents with the roots. I mentioned this law also in my video, Laws of Exponents, and will provide many examples on this law in my next video. A to the power of m over n is the same as the nth root of a to the power of m. So when we have, for example, a to the power of 1 over 2, that's the same as the square root of a raised to the power of m. Feel free to check out my next video where I will make a lot of examples about laws of exponents. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. This video is what I did for you. If you want to do something for me, hit the bell button, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy learning, everyone.